Let's talk to the Conservative MP for North West Norfolk, James Wild, who is with us now. James, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Chris.
Can I start with a bit of personal experience on this? Because as somebody who divides his time between West Norfolk and Westminster, would it be fair to assume that this is a service that you use? And I wonder how you find it.
Yeah, no, I do regularly use the service, and I've faced the similar unreliability that other passengers do. They've had unacceptably poor levels of service. I've had trains cancelled. I've had to travel back via Peterborough. I've been stuck at Ely where trains have terminated. So these are experiences people are having every day, and it's affecting people. I've had constituents contacting me, a cancer patient who 11 out of the 12 journeys they had to take were disrupted. That's totally unacceptable and needs to improve as soon as possible.
And then when you're standing on the platform waiting for information and people clock that the local MP is there, do they come up and vent their frustrations to you?
Yes, I think this is probably the number one issue that people have been raising with me, whether it's on a platform or I've been doing surgeries across the constituency, or whether I'm in the supermarket or at a parkrun. Everyone's had a bad experience, or one of their family members have, and things have got worse in recent months. I did a survey on the service a year ago and took those findings to the companies at the time and was told improvements would come. But you've been citing the figures of 380 cancellations in July. There was only one day that month with no cancellations. The latest figures the Fen Line Users Association have shared with me is there's been 195 so far in August. So things have improved, but that's obviously still too high a level of cancellations. So the action the companies told me when I met them that they were taking needs to be improving the service, and that's how people will judge it. It's all very well to have apologies, but people want to know when they turn up, they'll be able to get a train, the train will be on time, and they can get to wherever they need to be when they need to be there.
Realistically, what sort of improvements can be made? Because whenever we talk about train services in this country, we're always reminded quite how old some of the infrastructure is, quite how old, and certainly until recently, some of the trains are as well. And it is not an easy thing to improve quickly, is it?
It's not. Clearly, the extreme weather we've had has dried out the ground, which has had big impacts and is causing a number of the problems in terms of the overhead power lines and how the trains actually connect to them, which has caused some damage and some of the delays. But the new timetable that came in on the 3rd of August was to have slightly slower journeys, to have speed restrictions to reduce the impact on the most vulnerable parts of the track. And also there have been changes since then to prioritise King's Lynn services through Cambridge. For example, previously if trains running to Lynn were 3 minutes late or so, they would be forced to be held back for other trains, which would make the service even later. Now those trains will be prioritised, and Great Northern and Great British Anglia told me they expected that to make a difference. And you're right, the rolling stock, the 379 class trains, there's been problems with the air conditioning, problems with the safety cameras, for example, and the software that enables the drivers to look down the train and check that passengers have disembarked or embarked safely. So there's work to improve all of that. That won't be fixed overnight, but that needs to happen as rapidly as possible and build more resilience into the service. People are paying for a service and they should be getting a much better, more reliable service to and from Lynn.
So it's interesting running a train company, isn't it? Because one of the ways that you can reduce delays is having from what you said there, a much less ambitious timetable, and it doesn't actually get people anywhere any quicker, but at least you have stuck to your timetable.
Yeah, and they've taken a service out of the previous timetable in order to try and build that resilience. And talking to constituents, I think people want to know that if they're expecting to get a train, that it will turn up. And if that means that there are slightly less frequent services while this gets back on track, then that's something they're prepared to accept. But we're now in a position where both the track and the trains are in public control. Both Great Northern and Great British Anglia are controlled by the government, which is why I asked the Transport Secretary before we rose for the summer recess to take action to improve this service. I hope that she will be taking some action. You mentioned the seats that they're replacing on other trains. There's been a distinct lack of focus from the government on the services on this line, and that needs to change, and these companies need to be held properly to account for the improvements they've committed to making and ensure that they are delivered for passengers using the line.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Great British Railways there, because we're in the middle of a process at the moment of everything going back into public ownership, aren't we? And Great British Railways running everything. Do you think that will make changes like this much more straightforward? Because at the moment, to get to the bottom of this, we've had to speak to Great Northern, we've had to speak to Great British Railways, we've had to speak to Network Rail. There are so many organisations involved in running the railways.
There are, and I met with both Great Northern and Great British Anglia at the beginning of the month to raise these concerns and ask what their plans were and push for improvements. And they were keen to meet together rather than separately, which I thought was encouraging. They are working together. There were particular issues one weekend with the way the trains connect to, from the roof mounted arms connect to the overhead power lines, where they'd work closely together to resolve those issues. So the proof will be, does the service actually improve? Is reliability improving? But bringing together the track and the trains for greater collaboration is a sensible move. It's one that the last government began to do. So I support that, but we need to see actual results on the ground so that people like Jim Ring, who I met, who you had on the programme earlier, knows that when he wants to get his train to get to London, that it will be there. He'll get there on time. He can go and do his work. And importantly, get back. Too often on a Friday evening, I get messages from constituents whose journey has been disrupted and they've been turfed out at Ely or Cambridge with limited information. Rail replacement buses aren't lined up and they're having to wait or try and make alternative arrangements. And that's particularly a challenge if you're a vulnerable person. I've had constituents, a young mum with her 17-year-old baby who was stuck on a train, very hot train, for over an hour, and then was told that she needed to leave all of her pram and stuff on that train to move off it. She said that wasn't acceptable. I don't think that's acceptable. So the companies really need to get a grip here, and the government also has a role, as they are now all in public control.
It's certainly something we will return to and see what the service is like as the year goes on. James Wild, thank you.